Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye, senior government officials and business leaders discuss ways to maximize the effects of recent deals reached with Iran. They also focus on opening up new markets. Some mixed fortunes on the jobs front. Korea's overall unemployment rate fell in April from the month before, but the youth jobless rate hit its highest point ever for the month of April. First, more than 1,200 new planets are discovered through NASA's Kepler space telescope. The haul includes 9 which orbit in their sun's habitable zone. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 11th of May. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this afternoon. Senior government officials, including President Park Geun-hye and the heads of Korea's biggest business groups, are gathered at a forum in Seoul to share the results of President Park's recent state visit to Iran. Speaking at the forum, President Park said the lucrative agreements reached with Tehran must function as momentum to boost Korea's economic growth.
새로운 시장을 개척하는 노력이 더욱 강화되어야 하겠습니다. 도행지성이라는 옛말처럼 없던 길을 우리가 먼저 다니면서 만들어 가야 합니다.
The Korean leader called on smaller companies and startups to actively participate in overseas business opportunities. She also emphasized the potential of new export items in the smart city, e-commerce and energy-related sectors. President Park and her delegation returned from the 3-day trip to Iran at the beginning of the month with scores of MOUs worth a combined $37 billion. The deals mainly focus on rebuilding Iran's infrastructure. Now, the president isn't the only one promoting the benefits of close relations with Iran. The Korea Economic Research Institute estimates the volume of Korean exports to Iran will reach $84.5 billion by the year 2025. Some of the promising areas include infrastructure and facility construction, automobiles, petrochemicals, smartphones and cultural content. Trade with the Middle Eastern country is also expected to result in the creation of 680,000 new jobs, with most of them in the construction services sector as new buildings and facilities are installed. The institute adds, however, Korea needs to increase its foreign direct investment in Iran, which nosedived after international sanctions were slapped on Tehran. Experts say one way to do that is to redirect some of Korea's FDI currently focused on Saudi Arabia. Now, in domestic politics, the floor leaders of Korea's 3 main political parties will meet later this afternoon to discuss how to run and form the 20th Assembly that begins at the end of this month. Ruling Saenuri Party floor leader Jung Jin-sok, his main opposition Minju Party counterpart Woo Sang-ho and Park Ji-won of the minor opposition People's Party are scheduled to begin their talks at 5 p.m. Korea time. It will be the first time for the 3 to meet since they won their respective posts within their parties. One of the top agendas is how to allocate the chairman posts of the Assembly's 18 standing committees. The most coveted posts are National Assembly Speaker and the chairperson of a judiciary committee, as both are considered to have special leverage over legislative activities. Now, currently, the Minju Party, which will hold the largest number of seats, is expected to recommend one of its lawmakers to take the Speaker seat, while the Saenuri Party will get the chairmanship of the Judiciary Committee. Some mixed signs in Korea's job market. Korea's overall unemployment rate fell in April from the month before, but the youth jobless rate remains stubbornly high. Shin Se-min with the details.
Statistics Korea says the country's jobless rate dropped to 3.9% in April, logging a consecutive monthly fall after hitting a 2016 high in February. The agency attributed last month's drop to more jobs being added in the accommodation and retail sectors. But job creation fell last month from the month before, adding just 252,000 new jobs from the 300,000 in March. That puts the total number of employed people in Korea at around 26.2 million. The climate for Korea's young people remains grim. The youth unemployment rate was 10.9% last month. That's down from 11.8% the previous month, but last month's figure is still a record high for the month of April. The agency said the high figures in the early months of the year can be largely attributed to it being the annual recruitment season when graduates take civil service tests.
The large number of graduates seeking jobs after leaving university pushes up the jobless rate in that age bracket, but it also raises the employment rate as well.
Youth employment numbers have been hovering above 41% since 2013. The figure hit 41.8% in April, up 0.7 percentage point on year. The agency is optimistic the upward trend of employment will continue as it expects the government's efforts to boost domestic spending and consumer sentiment to be reflected on the jobs front. 신세민, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's spending on the elderly is about to make a huge leap as the population ages. An April report by the global credit rating agency Standard & Poor's says that government spending on the elderly, which took up about 7.7% of the GDP in 2015, will rise to a whopping 17.8% by the year 2050. Now, this is the fourth fastest growth rate among the 58 countries studied by the agency. Brazil had the highest rate of 12.7%. Followed by Ukraine and China. The agency says the alarming hike is a direct result of the rapid rise in the elderly population, and Koreans over 65 are projected to take up over 35.9% of the population by 2050, just 34 years from now. That projection is similar to one made by Korea Statistics Bureau, which also puts the figure at just over 35%. The chance of North Korea conducting a fifth nuclear test close to the end of its Workers' Party Congress seems to have dimmed, at least according to latest satellite analysis of the North's nuclear test site. Some experts say personnel changes at the Congress may indicate a migration away from nuclear development. Kwon So-ah with the details.
It didn't happen before the 7th Workers' Party Congress. And it may not happen anytime soon. The latest analysis from North Korea monitoring website 38 North suggests a nuclear test is not on the horizon. Satellite imagery of movements at the North's Punggye-ri test site from May 8th show low levels of activity at the main portals, and vehicles at the command center that were present on May 5th are no longer there. The possibility of a nuclear test was also debated among U.S. experts on Tuesday during a discussion organized by 38 North. President and founder of the Institute for Science and International Security, David Albright, said it's impossible to predict the timing of North Korea's next nuclear test. He added there are indications Pyongyang is preparing for a test, but it's hard to know when the regime will, quote, push the button, as the North has made it difficult to determine from outside if a test is going to happen today, tomorrow, or next month. Another expert said Kim Jong-un's nuclear ambitions may have made a turn since the Congress.
We got some things that suggest that he might start leaning a little bit away from the nuclear. Military is strong enough. In ideology, we're strong enough, but we have to work on the economy.
The scholar also mentioned that Kim's offer of military talks with Seoul, which he made at the Congress, is important. He cited South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises slated for August, saying they would increase tensions again, and even worse could happen. South Korea, however, made clear that it thought the North Korean leader's proposal was insincere and that talks can only happen with denuclearization first. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, staying with North Korea, and that country appears to be experiencing the side effects of its so-called 70-day battle to shore up its infrastructure ahead of that major party congress. South Korea-based Yonhap news agency reported Wednesday that satellite imagery of a Baekdu mountain power plant shows traces of a water leak from the dam originating from a crack in the wall. The image also shows tracks that water from the power plant have been removed to prevent additional leaks. In October, Kim Jong-un had ordered his people to complete construction of the power plant by August in time for a holiday for young adults. South Korean authorities had said the North was mobilizing its people to finish buildings and infrastructure ahead of the Workers' Party Congress, which wrapped up on Monday. A Korean father who staged a protest in London against oxy-rekit-benki's humidifier sterilizers is back home today. At a press conference at Incheon International Airport, Kim Dok-jong said the company's CEO, Rakesh Kapoor, did not make any effort to come up with more concrete measures regarding compensation of the victims. Mr. Kim also said he is planning to bring criminal charges against the company in collaboration with Korean prosecutors and civic groups in Denmark, where similar claims have arisen. Kim protested in front of the company's London headquarters last week to demand compensation for the loss of his son, who died in 2009 of an illness he says was linked to the oxy products. The Korean government has said it's planning to draw up measures for giving financial support to the victims and their families. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has scored another win, this time in West Virginia over his rival Hillary Clinton, and this further draws out the race in the nomination on the Democratic side at least. Sanders beat Clinton with 51% of the vote to Clinton's 36.5%, giving him 14 delegates to her 10. While Sanders' win proves he still has a small chance in the race, he would have to score huge victories in the remaining primaries to become the party's presidential nominee. Clinton has nearly 300 more pledged delegates than Sanders and has already started focusing on the general election in November. On the other side of the race, presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump ran unopposed in primaries in West Virginia and Nebraska after his two main rivals dropped out of the race last week. US President Barack Obama will visit Hiroshima this month, becoming the first sitting American leader to do so. The White House has dispelled speculation the symbolic visit is to apologize for the devastating atomic bombing during World War II. Park Jung-hong reports.
After a much-heated debate within the White House, it's now official that President Obama will visit Hiroshima. This itinerary had been controversial, as some feared it would be interpreted as an apology by the U.S. for dropping an atomic bomb on the city in August 1945, at the tail end of World War II. But the White House made it clear that is not the case, and there will be no apology.
The president intends to visit to send a much more forward-looking signal about his ambition for realizing the goal of a planet without nuclear weapons.
On May 27th, President Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will tour the site of the world's first nuclear bombing. The visit comes as part of Obama's week-long trip to Asia, beginning from May 21st. Prime Minister Abe told reporters he hoped the visit would become an opportunity for the U.S. and Japan to pay tribute to the victims. While most Japanese see the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as unwarranted, the majority of Americans see it as justified to end the war and save U.S. lives. Park Jung-hong, Arirang News.
Now to some exciting news in the search for life outside of our own world. NASA's Kepler mission has verified more than 1,200 new planets beyond the boundaries of our solar system, and a handful of them could even be similar to Earth. Kim Hae-sung reports.
NASA added 1,284 new planets to the known galaxy on Tuesday, the biggest single announcement of new exoplanets so far. Of the newly discovered planets, 9 are less than twice the size of Earth and are located in the so-called habitable zone around their stars, where conditions are favorable for liquid water and potentially life. NASA says the discovery gives hope that we can eventually discover an Earth-like planet. Since launching in 2009, Kepler has been watching more than 150,000 stars in one part of the sky to determine exoplanet candidates and has confirmed a total of 2,300. Next year, NASA plans to launch another space telescope called TESS. It will be similar to Kepler but will search the entire sky to find Earth-like planets around closer, brighter stars. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now, monthly sales of hybrid cars in Korea hit a record high in April, increasing by about 45% since December. According to the Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association, sales in April of hybrid cars topped 7,000 for the first time, representing about 8% of Korea's total automobile sales. Domestically produced hybrid cars saw a particularly large jump in sales, breaking the 6,000 mark for the first time, thanks to Kia Motors' Niro hybrid SUV, which had the highest sales of more than 2,400. Experts speculate whether the Niro could become a key model for expanding Korea's eco-friendly auto market, as it brought up sales of other hybrid cars as well. Foreigners visiting Korea say their most unique experience in the country was at a jjimjilbang, or Korean sauna. According to a poll by travel agency Cosmogin, 53% of the nearly 1,000 visitors it surveyed from March to April chose the Korean public bathhouse as their most memorable experience. Wearing the Korean traditional attire hanbok came second, followed by stamp making, taekwondo trials and traditional games. According to the travel agency, more tourists are interested in experience-based trips over sightseeing. Well, that is all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Next bulletin coming up at 3 p.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.